The courtroom went completely silent when I stood up and said, "Your Honor, I'll be representing myself." Across the aisle, Karen Whitfield, the ever-so-proud HOA president, blinked like she'd just been slapped by reality. She had no idea she'd just sued a retired attorney who'd spent 35 years eating lawyers like hers for breakfast. You could feel the air shift. Her smug little smirk cracked. That was the exact moment I knew this wasn't just about land anymore. This was about teaching her what happens when power meets consequence. My name's Thomas Mitchell, 65 years old, retired attorney. After decades in the courtroom, I'd traded the city noise for open skies, a 100-acre spread I called Cedar Ridge Ranch. It was peaceful out there mornings with the horses, coffee by the porch, nothing but wind and quiet. I'd bought the place from an old man named Jim Henderson. He told me, "Crystal clear, son, this land's free. No HOA nonsense, never has been." For a year, it really was paradise. Then one crisp October morning, trouble came rolling up my driveway in a shiny white Lexus SUV. Out stepped this woman, perfectly coiffed, hair clipboard and hand heels way too clean for a dirt road. She didn't bother introducing herself at first, just marched up to my gate like she owned the place. "Excuse me," she said, all clipped and commanding. "I need to discuss community trail access." I stared at her for a second, trying to process that sentence. "Can I help you?" I finally asked. "I'm Karen Whitfield, president of the Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association." She said it like she expected me to curtsy. "We're expanding our community trail system. We'll need to establish an easement through your property to connect to the county path." I almost laughed. "Ma'am, this is private property. It's not part of your HOA." Her smile tightened, that kind of smile people use right before they threaten you. "Well, that's what we'll need to discuss," she said. "The community believes this would benefit everyone. Promote health, raise property values." "That's great. I cut in for your community. But this land isn't yours." She tapped her clipboard with a manicured nail. "Mr. Mitchell, sometimes individual holdouts can't block progress. You'll understand once you see the bigger picture." I remember thinking, "Lady, you just drew your battle line." "Ma'am," I said, "I understand perfectly. The answer's no. Have a nice day." She huffed, stomped back to her car, and slammed the door hard enough to make my fence rattle. I figured that was the end of it. I was wrong. The first letter arrived 2 weeks later. HOA letterhead, bright red ink, ordering me to attend a mandatory community meeting. Then came another accusing me of violating community codes. Community codes I didn't even live in her subdivision. Pretty soon, county inspectors started showing up at my gate apologizing while they checked for code violations that didn't exist. She was filing false complaints. And every Saturday she'd bring groups of homeowners to my property line. They'd gawk, take photos, whisper like I was some kind of exhibit. It went on for months. I tried to ignore it. I wanted peace, not drama. But then one April morning I drove to the back of my property and froze. The padlock on my gate was cut clean through. Tire tracks led deep into my land, and nailed to my trees bright orange trail markers. I remember standing there heart-pounding, staring at those plastic signs like I couldn't believe it. Someone had actually come onto my ranch and started carving a public trail. That night I checked the new security cameras I'd installed the week before, and there she was. Karen Whitfield, in a tracksuit, bolt cutters in hand, marching through my gate at 2 in the morning with 2 other HOA board members. They drove straight onto my land, planting signs like conquerors claiming new territory. I sat there in the dark, watching the footage over and over. I wasn't even angry at first. I was just stunned. After 35 years defending property owners, I'd thought I'd seen every form of arrogance. But this was something else. Still, I told myself, don't make it worse. Maybe she'll stop. But she didn't. The next morning, I hired a welding crew. We installed a solid steel gate, anchored in concrete. Then I had my lawyer send Karen a cease and desist letter. Her response, she sued me. Friday afternoon, a process server showed up at my porch looking half embarrassed. "Mr. Mitchell," he asked, "you've been served." I opened the envelope. Karen Whitfield and the Willowbrook Estates HOA versus Thomas Mitchell. They were suing me for malicious obstruction of community resources, interference with easements, and my personal favorite, creating a public nuisance. They wanted 50 grand in damages and my property open to the public. I read the complaint twice. Then I poured a stiff drink. Her lawyer, a young guy named Bradley Cooper, had thrown every desperate argument in the book. Historical access implied easements greater good. All nonsense. And that's when I decided, fine. If she wanted a fight, she'd get one. I dusted off my old bar license. Retired or not, I still knew my way around a courtroom. I spent 2 weeks digging through old files. I pulled the original deed from 1952, the official county survey, and sworn affidavits from every previous owner. Not a single record of any easement ever. Then I printed stills from my security footage, Karen cutting locks, trespassing planting signs, and for good measure I saved a little sour audio recording. During one of her community gatherings, she'd stood on her side of the fence shouting to another HOA member, "I don't care if he owns it, I'll make his life hell until he gives in." Single-party consent state. Perfectly legal. Still late one night, as I sat there surrounded by papers and evidence, I started to feel that weight in my chest. The exhaustion. The voice that whispers, "You're too old for this. Just let it go." I'd left that world behind for a reason. The courtroom battles the egos, the endless arguments. Part of me wanted to just give her the damn trail end it all. But then I thought of that moment, her standing at my gate telling me I can't block progress, that smug tone, that entitlement. And I thought of the families like mine, people who just wanted peace being bullied by self-appointed tyrants hiding behind HOA titles. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about me anymore. It was about drawing a line once and for all. Court day came. Tuesday morning. The courtroom buzzed like a beehive. HOA members whispering reporters, scribbling Karen sitting there in her Navy power suit like she was running for Congress. She even had her little president's pin on her lapel. Judge Morrison presided, a tough woman in her 60s. I'd argued cases in front of her before I retired. She didn't recognize me right away. Karen's lawyer jumped to his feet for the opening statement. I'll give him credit, the kid had enthusiasm. He painted me as some grumpy old recluse hoarding land and denying the community their joy. These trails have existed for decades, he claimed. Mr. Mitchell is holding innocent families hostage. I almost smiled. When it was my turn, I stood up slowly, adjusted my tie, and spoke evenly. Your Honor, I said, I have here the original deed to my property dated 1952, the official survey from my purchase in 2021. Sworn affidavits from the previous 3 owners confirming that no easement has ever existed on this land, and at no time has it ever been part of the Willowbrook Estates HOA. I placed each document down one by one like cards in a poker game. I could see the color draining from the lawyer's face. Furthermore, I continued opening a folder. I have video evidence of Mrs. Whitfield trespassing on my property on 6 separate occasions, cutting locks, driving past my gates, planting unauthorized trail markers. I handed the judge several printed stills. Karen's face went pale. And finally, I said, holding up a flash drive, a recorded conversation in which Mrs. Whitfield states, and I quote, "I don't care if he owns it. I'll make his life hell until he gives in." The courtroom went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. "That was a private conversation," Karen shouted. "Recorded from my property," I replied calmly. Your voice carried over the fence. This is a single-party consent state, Your Honor. Judge Morrison glanced at the photos, then at Karen. "Mrs. Whitfield," she said, "is this you in these images?" Karen stammered. "That's taken out of context. The community needed those trails." "So you admit to trespassing?" the judge pressed. Karen's lawyer jumped in flustered. "My client acted in good faith, believing—" The judge cut him off. "Does your client have any legal document establishing an easement?" He shuffled through his papers, sweating. "We're still reviewing historical records, Your Honor." "So that's a no," she said flatly. I didn't need to say another word. The evidence spoke for itself. Judge Morrison turned to me. "Mr. Mitchell, do you wish to proceed with your counterclaims?" "Yes, Your Honor. I'm seeking damages for trespass, reimbursement of legal fees, and a permanent restraining order preventing Mrs. Whitfield or any member of her HOA from entering my property." Karen shot to her feet. "You can't do this. I'm the HOA president. I have authority. Judge Morrison slammed her gavel so hard the room shook. Mrs. Whitfield, you will remain seated and silent, or I'll hold you in contempt. And just like that, the mighty Karen Whitfield sat down. The next 20 minutes were a slow-motion demolition. The judge dismantled every one of their claims one by one, no proof, no precedent, no legality. Finally, she delivered her ruling. All claims from the Willowbrook Estates HOA are dismissed with prejudice. Mr. Mitchell's counterclaims are granted in full. Karen's mouth fell open. She was ordered to pay $15,000 in damages plus $5,000 in legal fees, and she was barred from coming within 500 feet of my property. But the judge wasn't done. Mrs. Whitfield, she said, her voice like steel, your behavior has been appalling. You've abused your position, harassed a private citizen, and wasted this court's time. Then she turned to the lawyer. Counselor, I strongly suggest you review the State Bar's rules on due diligence before filing another case like this. And then came the final blow. I'm forwarding this case to the District Attorney's Office for potential criminal trespass charges. I'll also be notifying the Willowbrook HOA Board of my ruling with a recommendation they review their leadership. Karen's voice cracked. I was only trying to help the community. The judge didn't even look up. No, Mrs. Whitfield. You were trying to bully someone into giving you what you wanted. There's a difference. The gavel fell. Case closed. I walked out of that courtroom to the sound of murmurs and rustling paper. Behind me, Karen was surrounded by angry board members whispering about resignations and emergency meetings. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. 3 days later, I got a certified letter. The Willowbrook HOA had voted unanimously to remove Karen as president and ban her from any leadership role. A month after that, the DA pressed criminal charges. She pled guilty to misdemeanor trespass, 1-year probation, 500 hours of community service, and a permanent mark on her record. Funny thing is, the story didn't end there. 6 months later, I was invited to speak at a law school seminar, HOA Overreach, When Power Goes Too Far. I used our case as the centerpiece. Students laughed, gasped, took notes. The lecture went viral. The new HOA board even sent me an apology letter and a fruit basket. Karen. Last. I heard she sold her house at a massive loss and moved 3 states away. She's working as a receptionist now, no longer in charge of anyone or anything. As for me, I kept my gates locked, my land quiet, my mornings peaceful again. I donated every cent she paid me to a legal aid foundation helping homeowners fight abusive HOAs. They named their new conference room the Whitfield Warning Room. Every time I think about it, I can't help but smile. Never underestimate the peace that comes when you finally stand your ground, because some lessons in power are only learned when the law pushes back.